I will call the meeting to order. We've taken roll call.
Yes.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the February 4th, 2016 regular meeting. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any corrections or changes? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. We go on to the approval of the fire department bills. Deputy Chief Harris.
All right. You have two sets of bills in front of you, both signed by Commissioner Myers. Bring attention to a couple items on there, and they're all EMS items this time to bring to your attention. On page 4G, were the components for the striker cots. That's to bring two of our cots up to a level where we can handle bariatric type patients. Those have been purchased and they'll be installed by the end of the year. On page 4K from Bontree, the EMS packs to utilize the rescue task force operation. All 5 of those items are for the rescue task force boxes or cases that we carry in for that item. And also on page 4M, the physio control is the 4 Verizon modems to be utilized to transport the 12 lead to St. Joe's. So if there's anything else that you got any questions on, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
I do. What was that last one?
It's the modems for the defibrillators on the ambulances to be able to transport the 12 lead.
That's fine. Any other questions on the fire department bills?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second to approve the fire department bills. That requires a roll call. Got you, didn't I? Kirschman.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Myers. Keo, yes. Deputy Chief, you're not here all the time. The importance of that was that I remembered it takes a roll call. I typically don't. Yes. Next item on the agenda is the police department bills. Chief.
Yes, good morning. 3 sets of bills in front of you, all 3 signed by Commissioner Gershman, 2 on the 3rd and 1 on the 17th. A couple of them were 2015 bills, and there's one that was a 2016 packet of bills. 2 things I'll bring to your attention. 5B, there's a purchase of some clearing containers or clearing devices for our handguns. This is something that we haven't had in the past. It's a safety device to where if we're ejecting a round from our gun, we can point the gun into this device, and should there be an accidental discharge or fire, it would be contained rather than bouncing throughout the walls of the police department, which we're going to have one of these devices at the police department and one out at our range.
Don't you typically use a bucket of sand or something?
No,
Oh.
but that may have been cheaper. But no, this is a device specifically made for that. It also allows for us to clear our rifles, and we'll be able to stop a rifle round, which I'm not sure how big of a bucket of sand we would need for stopping a rifle round. 5H, there is the payment made to Lexipol for our policy manual that was approved a couple months ago. Just wanted to point out that payment was made. Pat Zeps is working on our policy manual, and when we are completed with that, we'll give you the finished product for your review and approval, probably a couple months yet down the road. That's all I have to bring to your attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have or ask for your approval.
Motion to approve.
I'll move.
Second.
Second.
Any questions for the chief about the police department bills? Hearing none, roll call vote. Gershman.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Keo, yes. Motion carries. Fire department activities.
Been a busy month for us in February with getting the annual report done and everything else, but we were able to get some good training in this month. A couple items to just note on page 6A and 6C. We met with Bethel Nursing Home. They actually came to our facility and talked to each one of our shifts, and we went over some of the issues with transports for the patients, and their goal was by the time the meeting was done to have a better patient relationship, and everything that we discussed was supposed to help the patient more. That was recepted very well from the shifts. There was good dialogue back and forth, and I think both sides learned a little bit more about each department so we can provide a better service for them. We met on 2 of the shifts in February, and actually just yesterday they finished off with the other shift. So they ended up meeting with all 3 shifts. On February 1st, we had a fire which ended up being $45,000 worth of damage on West Cleveland. That was the investigators looked into it, and it was a careless use of cigarette material that caused the fire at that location. And then thirdly, on page 6N, we got a very nice letter from a gentleman that on his anniversary sent us a card just thanking us for saving his life, which I thought that was pretty neat. Not only to get a card for him, but him to remember us, a year later. So if there's anything else that you got, any questions about anything, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Any questions or comments from the commission members? Thank you, Chief. We accept and place on file or do nothing?
Place on file.
Place on file. We're going to do that. Okay. Police department activities.
Yes, probably an average month, nothing too spectacular throughout the month of February. A couple things I'll bring to your attention. We began our presentations to the high school, again, our Student Citizens Academy. Myself and one of the instructors, Mike Nanstead, met in February, and those presentations began a little bit later in the month. 2 criminal justice classes this semester, 1 second hour, 1 8th hour, and so far those have been going well. We also began allowing for 2-hour ride-alongs with students from those criminal justice classes with parental approval. So we've been staggering those on either Mondays or Fridays between the hours of 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. So we'll take up to two students with us, just take them through the city on average patrol shift for 2-hour blocks of time. Then there's a couple presentations I'll bring to your attention, one on the 15th and one on the 16th. The one on the 15th was to Central City Credit Union on how to respond to an active shooter or an active threat situation that would happen in their facility. Sergeant Esser and Officer Topness put on this presentation, and it was very well received. The other one on the 16th was a heroin presentation at the Eagles Club, but it was for the Tea Party, and they had requested just an update on drug trends and what we're seeing in the area and in the community. Out of that, if you look at 7D, they were very generous and gave a $100 donation to the police department's canine fund, which assists us in building money to put towards the purchase of a canine in the future. So there'll be a couple other checks that you'll see that came through here from Department of Transportation, as well as from Green Lake County. Green Lake County has our Drug Task Force grant. They're the holder of the grant, or the I guess disperser of the grant. So whenever there's overtime monies that are earmarked towards the drug prevention or drug investigations, those overtime monies will usually be reimbursed through the DOJ grant that we have with our task force. Be happy to answer any questions you have on that.
Oh, this is for a grant that we're running for distracted driving.
Any questions?
I just got one question. I know we've had some discussion about drug activity. There was an article in the News Herald about Wisconsin Rapids. It seems like their level of activity is even higher than what ours is. I mean, do you have any comment on that? Or?
Yeah, it's busy. It's busy everywhere. We have, unfortunately, we have a drug problem. Wisconsin Rapids has historically kind of been a hub for that, which means that, I mean, there's a direct connection, obviously, between Rapids and us. We've seen, as we look at some of the, crime reports that I provided, that we can get to in a little bit, but on the quality of life report, we're already probably about 30% ahead of where we were last year at this time for drug arrests. So it's not going away, unfortunately. Wisconsin Rapids actually was very fortunate to just add a second drug investigator through their common council, adding that extra position, not through a grant, but they added that extra position. It's a position that they've needed for quite some time, and I'm hoping it'll make an impact down there, which will then subsequently make an impact up here. But no, it's been busy. Wisconsin Rapids has been equally busy. They're working on putting together a drug task force. That's something that we've had in place here in the city through the Marshfield Area Coalition for Youth and the Center for Community Outreach. We've had that in position for probably going on 4 years. They liked a lot of the things we were doing, and with the heroin initiatives we've been doing in the community, and how the city has bought into that and has budgeted certain monies towards that heroin task force. And they're trying to duplicate some of the things we're doing up here. So I'm hoping that they have the same successes that we have had, which is that community buy-in and the community support, primarily towards the educational component. Across the state, there's still a treatment component that's lacking and is deficient, and we hope to work towards tackling that treatment aspect. That goes far beyond the walls of the police department and this commission, but obviously the more support we could garnish community-wide for that necessary component of that necessary pillar of being treatment to those who are affected by drug addiction, the better we'll all be off in the long run. Yeah, you bet.
Any other questions for the chief? Hearing none, thank you, chief. Next item on our agenda is the presentation of the annual report of the fire department.
I believe you all received a copy from the annual report. I'd like to start it off by just thanking all the members of our department that actually put this book together. It takes a cooperative effort amongst not only our department, but some other departments in the city to be able to put this report together for you. So, and then I guess a special thank you to both Chief Haight and Deputy Chief Owen and Sue Berger, who have ended up putting the whole thing together toward the end there. Bob apologizes for not being here to do the presentation. He's at a chief education conference down at the Dells, we spoke, and also Deputy Chief Owen was going to be here and present the EMS side of the annual report, but he had a death in the family, wasn't able to make it, so he apologizes too. So I don't want to go through the whole report in detail, because you had it in front of you, you read it, and I'd rather save more time to discuss it or answer any questions that you may have, but I'll just hit a couple highlights. We started 2015 with 37 employees. We had 3 resignations and 1 retirement. We did end up hiring 3 personnel, and we ended the year with 36 employees. Fire loss for 2015, it was decreased by $401,600 over 2014. And pages 23 and 24 show a $157,400 loss for 2015 and a $599,000 loss for 2014. The big loss in 2014 for the difference was out at the experimental farm. There's one fire that was like $300,000, so that was one of the sizable ones. But that happens almost every year. We usually have one that's bigger than the other. On page 12, the financial page, the fire came in under budget, $96,934, and the EMS budget, which is an enterprise fund, came in over budget by just $10,507. On page 13, for EMS, 2015 advanced life support, 58% of the calls were ACLS calls, that's advanced paramedic level calls, compared to in 2014, which was 47% of our total calls were ACLS. And that just basically shows you that the increase in the higher level type services is gradually going up for us here. And then all the way back to starting on page 32, if you read through this report and the past reports in the last 5 years, it just basically shows a gradual increase both in fire and EMS. Over the last 5 years, it's increased. Just this last year, we had 198 extra calls, both EMS and fire, which showed about a 7.3% increase. The only exception to that was 2014, which both fire and EMS had a little bit of a decline from the year before. But we end up having to do a lot more on about the same as what we got, and just I guess a thank you to all the department members that have picked up these additional calls and were able to handle them in a professional manner that they do. So with that, that's all the items I wanted to point out, but we do have time to answer any questions that you might have from reading through the report.
Thank you. Questions?
Do you see, or what was the main cost for the ambulance service to go over budget?
I haven't been able to read through all that. Scott Owen would have that information. But I know that he had quite a few unexpected maintenance issues with some of the ambulances. And about every other day, he was sending an ambulance in for some type of repair. And whether that's enough to get him over budget or not, I'm not 100% sure. But that'd be my guess right now. That was one of the issues.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
On page 30, there seems to be an increase in the number of out-of-service area calls for the ambulances. What do you attribute that to? Obviously, we're going out and helping other departments.
Right. I think the rural, along with the city, we're all seeing an increase in the calls. I don't know if that's the age of our community is getting older or what that is. But basically, it's mirroring what the city's seeing too, on the increase of calls. So to get in.
That's the rural, but the second line from the bottom says out-of-service area, it went from 23 to 36. Is that going out and helping Spencer and Stratford and these other departments
That'd be
directly?
some mutual aid stuff, and then also we've been able to work with, for out-of-town transfers. Our issues in the past was always getting the guaranteed payment, and there were some issues with the finances that way. And I know both Scott and Bob have been working with different organizations that require or ask us to do out-of-town transfer ports. And they were able to work it out where the guaranteed payment has been there. And I know there's been a number of out-of-the-city type transports that we have been doing lately. And that's what I guess that would contribute that to, that they were able to work out the finance part of it, where in the past, we could not get the guaranteed payments, so we were refusing those type of transports.
Is this related to the work that's, I think is underway to reschedule, to restructure the payment schedule because of longer transports?
That, I would have to get back with both either Bob or Scott to be able to get an answer on that.
No, that's fine.
I think maybe the point I was trying to make is that Stratford and Spencer can't respond to ambulance calls because they don't have the personnel during the day to do it. So we're going out there and picking people up. Correct.
I don't see that happening, to be honest with you, because we don't get that many mutual aids with them, and then when we do, we have been responding with them or because they've been on another call themselves. But I can't really answer that either way, I guess.
Mike, if that happens, if it's a mutual aid, are we paid for those runs?
I would assume we would be, I don't know, but I've been having Scott track those for me
Okay,
because I'm aware of the fact that during the daylight hours, they don't normally have enough people to ride on the ambulance because everybody's got jobs and they can't be in two places at one time. And so we are actually going up there and responding to the call. But the concern I have is that in that case, it's getting to be like 20 minutes because they first have to find out they don't have enough people to ride on the ambulance. Then by the time we get up there, it's 20 and 25 minutes, and I hate to be the guy laying on the ground
yeah.
waiting for an ambulance and we've got a problem like that. So actually, I've been talking to Bob about working with those communities in a cooperative way, at least maybe during, from 6 to 6 or something, and actually responding instead of having a person sitting there for 20 minutes.
And if you ask Scott to be tracking that, I'm sure he has that, and we could probably even put that on the agenda next month to have him speak on that.
Probably a couple more months, yeah, we'll have something.
Sure.
on it.
Okay.
Other comments or questions about the fire department annual report? This is a very small thing, but I'll ask you to turn to page 19. I love this stuff. If you read the first paragraph and then tell me what it's about, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
You might want to think about rewriting that paragraph for next time. Because I've read it now, I think, 3 times, and I still don't know what this whole section's about. But anyway, I love finding those things. It's the old teacher, you know.
Okay, I'll bring it to his attention. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions about the fire department annual report? Hearing none, thank you, and thank everyone for their hard work in preparing it. This goes on to a variety of city officials, goes on to the council members and the city administrator and mayor and all of those kinds of
Correct.
folks, right?
Mhm.
I wish we could encourage them to read it, because it really does explain a lot, yeah.
I believe we also leave a copy down at the library too for
Okay,
the citizens to be able to get a copy.
good. In any case, thank you again. Chief, Police Department annual report.
I would like to echo some of the praises that Deputy Chief Erickson had for his staff. Our staff was very dedicated to putting this together, especially Peggy. She put in a lot of hours into giving you the document that you have in front of you. So thank you to all staff. A couple things to bring to your attention on that first introductory page. We talk about some of the retirements that we've had. We had 3 officers retire in 2015, totaling about 75 years experience between the 3 of them. With that, we were very fortunate with the new hires that we did accrue through our process. Crossing guard John Scheuer, who had previously worked as a police officer for the city, had retired for a second time, I guess we would say, after 17 years as a crossing guard and over 30 years as a police officer for the city of Marshfield. So that total of 47 years is definitely appreciated. We recognized him at our police officer memorial last May, and gave him a recognition award for his 47 years of service to the community. We highlight that we brought on a new canine this year. We changed our patch this year, as you can see by the front cover of the annual report. We also changed the look of our squads in 2015. As far as numbers wise, our clearance rate stayed above 60% for the 2nd year in a row, which I'm quite proud of. The average state clearance rate usually hovers between 35 and 40%. So to be at a 60% clearance rate at a city our size is, I think, quite an accomplishment, and I give kudos to our staff for that, from the dispatchers taking good information down in Wood County, to our first responding officers, to any form of complaint, to our detective bureau, as it relates to following up on the necessary cases that they're assigned. It's a good team effort, and without that team effort, we wouldn't be at that 60% clearance rate for UCR crimes that we are. Couple items I'll bring to your attention. On page 28, our maintenance costs for vehicles went up slightly in 2015 as it was from where it was in 2014, but it's still down quite a bit from the previous 3 years from that. We might attribute that to just I think the average miles per gallon had dropped a little bit. I know that towards the end of 2015, or towards the beginning of 2015, it was very cold, and based on our setup at the police department, we often have to leave vehicles running 24 hours a day because they are first responding vehicles, and if it's below freezing out, or if it is adverse weather, we need those vehicles to be clear of snow and ice to be able to respond in an emergent fashion. So that could have been one of the reasons why some of those, why some of that mileage was down a bit. On page 29, we continue using our, the Wisconsin surplus online auction to dispose of vehicles that we no longer have a need for, or that are, I guess, beyond mileage to where we want to maintain them. We've had good success in the monies that we're bringing in from Wisconsin surplus, totaling roughly $30,000 in proceeds this last year. On page 39, our transport officer program is still running very well. We have dedicated staff who come in pretty much at a moment's notice. Our newest transport officer is retired Chief Gary Jepson, who had some extra time on his hands and wanted to continue to give back to the community. So he's actually come in this year a couple of times. It wouldn't reflect in any of the 2015 numbers, but it's just a valuable program that we have that allows us to keep proper staffing within the city, so that we're not taking an officer off the road for anywhere from 1.5 to 3 hours, depending on the transport or where the transport is to. And it also allows for, fiscally, for us to not have to necessarily call in officers on overtime just to transport somebody down to Wood County Jail or up to Marathon County Jail. Our numbers in 2015 were pretty much in line with what 2014's were. They were 1 hour off. So just shy of that 400-hour mark is what has been put in by those transport officers. And last thing I'll bring up to your attention is on page 47, our auxiliary page. Again,